Chrissy the link to be able to go and order more if you want to choose. But there are some there, and certainly take the copies, the ones that we had, feel free to take those as well. Any of those are fair game here. I wanted to give you a few different updates, some of the stuff, different stuff that's happening at DPI. Some of it's related to GT, some of it is not. The first one I wanted to talk about is, so the Javits grant that I've been talking about, and what kind of drove a lot of this work, we are wrapping that up as of May 1st. The good news is we're also going to be spending down nearly every cent of it. I am trying real hard to do that, because we don't like to give money back to the feds. And frankly, they don't want it back, because it doesn't look good for them. So that's exciting. My next step after that is certainly pulling together, doing the full report that we need to do for the feds, and then kind of taking stock and saying, okay, where are we going next? How do we want to move forward with this work? And I'm excited to have the opportunity to have a little downtime and try to start thinking through that. Some different things that I wanted to share. So on the DPI website, any of the DPI websites, dpi.gov, you just type in gifted. I usually try and put in different scholarship, internship type information here. I just added something about some of the stuff Wickedy is doing, WATAG scholarships, the Javits Fraser Scholar Program. So that's PD for teachers. I heard somebody who went to this, it looks like they're accepting applications till May 4th, went to this and felt it was a really good experience. I just had one up on John Blank, had like this fellowship, but that just ended. But the Jacob Fraser Scholar, I think what it ends up doing is sending people to the NAGC conference. This year it will be in Orlando, so these scholars get an opportunity to spend some more time there and learn and kind of dig in. So you're always welcome to check out my website to see what may be there. I try and keep it as updated as possible. One of the other things I wanted to make you aware of is on the DPI webpage, in the past 6 months or so, we started a new thing called the Competitive Grant Inventory. So if you just go to the search and type in grant, even if you don't remember the exact name, this Competitive Grant Inventory is where we're tracking all the different grants that DPI may have available. And it talks about who's eligible for applying for that. In some cases, public school districts. In this first one, public school district CSAs. It may talk about a due date, meaning that applications are out and you may be able to do it. If you're interested, then you just link out. So it's all it is kind of a clearinghouse. The grant that I work with, yes, is available to public school districts, public charter schools, independents, community-based organizations, CSAs. We have not yet released that grant. My goal is to try and get that out the door by April 1st, if at all possible. Part of the reason we haven't already gotten it out there is that we're changing the grant template this year. Again, we've been doing a lot of work in the department trying to make our grant application more similar across different grants so that when districts are looking at a grant application, they kind of know that these are all the same animal. But we're still in the midst of doing some work on that, hoping to get that out the door soon. We typically, and I will plan to put it out for 6 weeks so that if districts or you or CISA or whoever wants to apply can apply, they have about a 6-week window. Then we have at least 6 weeks for review and those kind of things, and then we make a decision, a final decision. My goal is to try and get that final decision by June 30th. That hasn't happened once yet in the 2 years that I've been there. I doubt it'll happen this year, but I'm sure going to try. So you can find that at any point. Some of the other work that's happening on other teams, I want to just type in academic standards. So there's been a lot of work happening both with some of my colleagues or with some of the teams that I work closely with. So I'm on the teaching and learning team, and that includes like social studies, environmental ed, fine arts, world languages. We have a specific literacy and mathematics team as well. Some of the people on my team have already completed their standards process. Others are in the middle of starting to do that. But if you're ever interested in trying to figure out kind of where we're at, so English language development, mathematics, alternate social studies, English language arts, FIAD, personal financial literacy, you can always find more information about that But even better than that, we have comment periods, and we actually want feedback from educators who are looking at this and saying, you know, this doesn't make a lot of sense, or why are you doing it this way or that way, or what have you. So that commenting period, it depends on where they're at in the standards process. This is something that you can find out at any point if you want to learn more. We're also, for those standards that are out there, we're doing kind of a rollout process, and not me personally, but my colleagues are doing it. For example, our science consultant who's had the standards out for a while, and our social studies consultant who's had hers out for a while, they're doing work together right now on trying to work with elementary classrooms about building inquiry into their elementary classrooms. Part of the reason, you know, they're certainly going to help with all levels of science and social studies, but part of the reason I think they're focusing a lot of energy on elementary is because we often know that science and social studies are sometimes not being taught at all, or perhaps it's just kind of like an afterthought at that level, so they're trying to come up with ways in which hopefully teachers can do more of that in their elementary classrooms. So there's a lot of good work happening here at the department around standards. You can see timelines, you can see checklists, you can see who's on the review council, but the main thing is kind of where are we at with some different standards, and sometimes, you know, we really want feedback from you in order to get some of that work done. Off this same page, there's also some work happening on high quality instructional materials and professional learning. What I want to say about this is this idea that this is a big push that's happening to say, I don't remember the exact specifics on this, but there is a lot of classrooms that are not actually using curricula that is at the correct grade level to start with. So when we talk about even a gifted or anything, we're talking about trying to differentiate. That's great, we need to do that. But if we're not at a good starting point in the first place, we're already kind of in the hole. We might be differentiating to the level we should have been in the first place. So there's a big push to try and figure out how do we get in front of teachers high quality instructional materials, but also the PD in order to really do this well. So the way they've talked about it, and our literacy and mathematics team is really spearheading this work, but the way they've talked about it is that, yeah, one, we need to make sure that you have the right curriculum to start with. But two, we need to make sure you know how to use it and learn more about it and have time to dig in and try and understand what could this look like, how can we do this in our classrooms. So I like the fact that they have kind of both of those different kind of charges, so you'll hear it talked about as IMPL, instructional materials and professional learning, and hopefully you're going to be hearing more about that soon. All right, another thing, we're in the middle of open enrollment period. That is going until the end of April. I'm sure many of you are aware of that. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that that is time frame. It started in maybe early February, and it's going until April 30th. Some of the other work that we're doing at the department is what at least some of us are calling de-siloing, and I'm not entirely sure if that's a real word, but and the idea is that we need to work more across our teams and talk with our colleagues and try and figure out ways in which we can make things a little easier for you and package things maybe differently and have some of the conversations that we want you to be having at the building level or district level, but we're not always walking our own walks. So an example of that is family engagement. That's one of the areas that I've spent a lot of time on myself because I think it's really critical. You know, certainly some of that is really required based on our administrative code, but frankly, it's just the right thing to do any way we can. So I've spent time even doing a book study with a group of educators around family engagement. I have been working with our colleagues on the title team and a little on our special ed team, trying to understand more about what is it that they're expecting of schools and how are they expecting them to do that work so that we can have a better chance of having a more coherent message. We're always working around issues of equity and trying to think about how do we actually push equity in the work we're doing, and again, trying to do this more across teams whenever possible. So we're doing a lot of work like that. But it's hard because, frankly, everyone's busy. But I always say, if I can literally walk across the hallway and not know the work of that team because they are literally kind of in their own little world, and I'm in my own little world. So we have to break that down where we can. So we'll continue to do some of that work. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, part of my job is working with gifted and talent, of course, but also I work with advanced placement and with our international baccalaureate schools. With advanced placement, some of the stuff that's been happening lately is I formed a work group with different district representatives to try and say what is working in your schools to increase access and success, and what maybe is an area of weakness, or what are things that we can do, what can we learn from each other. So this work group has been going for 8-9 months, something like that. We don't have any solid recommendations that we put out to the world yet, but one of the things we're trying to do is address the fact that we have disproportionality in AP as well. So you will see who is or isn't taking these courses. We need to do a lot more work in that area. And frankly, part of the reason I'm pushing it too is that in many school districts, AP is the gifted program at high school. Not saying that's the right thing, but that is what's happening. So that means, in my mind, is we have to make sure that we are increasing access and success, but certainly trying to get more kids in the door. And some of that is about changing mindsets. And some of it's about changing structural things, like, well, you can't get into you can't get into AP class until you have this GPA, or this, and this. And sometimes that's just literally ruling kids out of this. Or, to be fair to teachers, some teachers are feeling, well, we're going to be evaluated. If the number of students who are not getting a 3 or above on AP goes down, that's going to reflect badly on me. We need to work on some of that with leadership as well, to say, getting those kids in the classroom, even if they get a 2, could be really powerful, because at least those students have the opportunity to see what this curriculum is like, to be pushed hard, to be challenged. Maybe they didn't get a 3, maybe they're not getting college credit for it, but that doesn't mean that it was not a valuable process. And so we've got a lot of work to do there, and I'm not sure where we're going to land at this point, but I wanted to make you aware of some of that. The international baccalaureate schools, just show of hands, how many of you know much about IB? Cool. I didn't expect many people would, but I want to just show you a few different things just to share a bit about some of the work that happens in the IB world. So I don't really have an official role with the IB group. I am kind of the liaison to them from DPI, and it's a really interesting group of educators, and I've liked spending time with them. International baccalaureate schools have in their mission the following phrase: to create a better and more peaceful world with intercultural understanding and respect. So these are all things that we, of course, value at the DPI. They have 4 different programs in IB. The different programs are at different levels. So they have what's called the primary years program, middle years program, and the diploma program, which is what people are most familiar with just because it's been around the longest. And their newest one is called the career-related programs. So when we have this meeting of the association, and we do have an association called the Wisconsin Association of IB World Schools, aka WAIS, they work together and meet pretty much monthly to talk about how are they doing, what's happening in their schools, what's something coming up, maybe the national conference is happening or what have you. It's a mix of private and public schools, which is really interesting to kind of get both perspectives from them. And they talk about some business stuff, of course, but then they also break out into kind of light groups. So all of the PYP people will meet for the afternoon and talk about what are you doing, what are things that are working for you, what isn't working. The MYP group meets, the DP and CP group meet as well. So I wanted to just jump over here real quick and go to the main page for International Baccalaureate. So find an IB school. I wanted to just show you who is actually participating here in Wisconsin. And you'll notice that, so some of these, and some of these are just schools, so Academy of Accelerated Learning is in an FPS, but they only have a PYP program. You'll see in other cases, some of these schools, like Green Lake, actually, they basically have every program, all levels. So their students who are in Green Lake and elementary, they're part of the PYP program, they move into the MYP, and then they eventually go to the DP program. And that's something that district as a whole felt like we want to really buy in and do this work. So it's been a really interesting experience just to kind of hear some of the work that they do. The students are taking exams much like the AP exam process, those in the diploma program. At every level, students have kind of a capstone type project. Right now, across the world, because this is an international thing, apparently there are about 1 million students in IB classrooms and about 70,000 educators. And according to the International Baccalaureate Organization, and I'm paraphrasing, is they believe it's the benefits are high quality education supporting the development of knowledgeable and inquiring students. They have PD for educators. There's a worldwide network of best practices. Their goal is to develop internationally minded people who recognize common humanity and share guardianship of the planet. So there's often an environmental kind of lens on a lot of what they're doing, which I personally appreciate a lot. I think it's an important lens for us to be keeping in mind. The students need, they believe the students need education that crosses disciplinary, cultural, national, and geographic boundaries. And they do this, they have many of the same core courses that everybody else would, but they might do them somewhat differently. So they have language and literature, language acquisition, sciences, math, arts, and something they call individuals and society. And individuals and society is kind of social studies plus, fosters a critical appreciation of the human experience and behavior, the environments that people inhabit, and history of social and cultural institutions. The other thing that at the diploma program level they have is what they call CAS, which stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service component. So now the students do this CAS capstone project as part of their work. And I should add that not all students end up getting the diploma program kind of designation. They may take courses and not actually go through all the steps in order to get that, and that's okay. Some schools are happy just to have these kids in some of these courses. Some schools have kind of at least two tracks going, where some students are not in the IB stuff, and some are, or some have even 3 tracks. Some might do AP, IB, and just kind of traditional coursework. It depends on their situation. But this CAS thing, creativity, activity, and service. Creativity is connected to the arts. The activity is thinking about healthy lifestyle. And then the service component is the students are required to do an unpaid voluntary exchange that has learning benefit for the students. This is my favorite line: the rights, dignity, and autonomy of all of those involved are respected. So I think that's really cool. So the IBO, and I'm sure we're going to be having this conversation in the AP world soon, but the IBO has already started to talk about what are they going to do about the coronavirus, because it's becoming a big issue worldwide, of course. They're trying to allow more flexibility for more online teaching for those students who might be in IB programs, but should not be at schools at this time. But the testing thing is going to be really interesting, because they are apparently not going to allow any flexibility on the testing because they have this global testing schedule. So this is going to be an interesting spring for a lot of different people, including people all over the world. If you're interested in IB, I can certainly connect you with other people. We have some different schools who are going through the process to become IB schools at this point. La Crosse is at least one of their schools is starting to do that. We have some that are long established. MPS has a number of different ones, some private, some public in that area. Green Bay is involved, a whole bunch of different ones. So if you want information, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm not the expert, but I do appreciate a lot of the work that they're doing. And it's good to kind of hear about how they're trying to push the envelope to themselves. Last thing I will say is that this is now Youth Art Month. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because I'm needing to go to the Youth Art Month celebration at the Capitol, because I was lucky enough, one of my colleagues, our fine arts consultant, was going to be on vacation. She asked me to go and judge the student art. It was fantastic. I loved it. So I get to go to the ceremony in just a little bit here and see more about what's happening. And I don't know how long the student stuff is going to be up. I don't think it's going to be up long, which is really unfortunate because it was beautiful. I mean, no matter what we did, it was going to be the right choice, because these students, they stepped up. I mean, really impressive stuff. things that, you know, artists that I don't even know, and they were kind of copying them, and you look and it's like, it's a kindergarten. It's like, what? So it was really a fun experience, and I hope actually I get to do it again in the future. But I really appreciate your time today. I'm happy to entertain any questions if you have any. Otherwise, thank you.